Welcome to the last video in the series. This one is looking at tables. Tables I find quite difficult sometimes because when it comes to the overview, sometimes it's very hard to see and decide what is a main feature and what isn't a main feature. In this particular case, I think we've got a good example because there are several noticeable features here. Back to the beginning, how do you structure a table? Well, it's the same as always, an introduction, an overview, and then 1, 2 or 3 body paragraphs, depending on what makes sense. Our introduction, again, as always, is to paraphrase the statement that they give us in the question. Then we have an overview, finding the main features, and then we give our body paragraphs. So let's look firstly at my introduction. I have said, information is provided by a table which shows the total world population and its regional distribution in 1950, 2000 and projections for 2050. I'm just saying what they said in my own words. Now, the overview. This is the tricky part. What I want you to do is have a look, take your time, and decide what you think the main features are of this one. Take as long as you want. Pause the video if you need to. If you still need some time, obviously take it, but let's have a look at what I saw. The overview I've got here is going to be a bit larger than other overviews that I usually do because I think there is more to say. Firstly, a main feature. So we can't leave any main features out, okay? Sometimes there's only a couple of main features, but here I think there are plenty, so I do need to include them in the overview. First thing I noticed was the world population grows significantly. 2.5, 6, then 9, alright? That's the obvious thing. So, first, overall, the global population increases significantly, and that's the first point. Next point, another main feature I saw was Asia, 56, 60, 59. That's the biggest. That's the next main point. And Asia stands out as the region with the highest population across the 100-year period. What else was noticeable? Oceania is tiny, okay? So I'm going to contrast the biggest with the smallest, whereas Oceania has the least. Another main feature I saw was Europe drops by more than half, 22 to 7. That's pretty significant. And Africa increases by more than half, 9 to 20. So for me, I thought that was another main feature I needed to add. Also, Africa is expected to see its population grow significantly, whereas Europe will see its population share fall. Now, I didn't say population fall because it probably won't. What's probably happening is Africa is just increasing its population and Europe is probably just staying stable. You've got to be careful because these are percentages, these are not numbers. So I can't say its population fell, I can say its population share or share of population fall. Now, you could even add North America and Latin America to this overview if you wanted. I decided not to, but you wouldn't be wrong if you did. So body 1, what's body 1 going to be about? It's going to be a short paragraph about the world population, because to me they're very different things. You got world population and then something completely different, which is regions. So my body 1 is about world population. Let's read my body 1. Beginning. In 1950, world population stood at 2.5 billion inhabitants. By 2000, this figure had more than doubled to 6 billion. This increasing trend is set to continue, and by 2050, the global population is estimated to reach 9 billion people. Really simple. Okay, I'm just stating what the numbers are. I can't really use comparison and contrast here because there's only one world population. I would need, the Mars population if I could show comparison and contrast. Now, this is the more difficult part. I need to go through the main features and sort of explain them in a bit more detail. Now, if I give every single percentage here, you've got 6, but I'm going to have to give 18 figures. So I have to decide, do I give all of those figures or just some of them? My suggestion with tables is don't give all the figures if there are lots of figures to give. 18 I think is too many. So just give what you think the important ones. Okay, it's important to give the beginning and the ending, or at least an indication of the beginning and the ending and the trend. Let's go to the second body paragraph that goes through the regions. Start at the beginning. Of course, what did we talk about first in our overview? Well, aside from world population, we started with Asia. So it makes sense for us to start with Asia in our body paragraph. In 1950, Asia was home to more than half the global population, 56%. And by the turn of the century, its share of world population had reached 60%. Notice I used past perfect here, because both of these times are in the past, and I'm explaining what happened between a past time and another past time. That's the reason I use past perfect. If you're not clear on how to use past tenses or verb tenses in general, watch some grammar videos or read a grammar book. You should always be very good at verb tenses or task 1 academic. It's important when there are multiple years. Anyway, moving on. This figure finally is set to only drop slightly to 59% by 2050. So I went beginning, middle and end for Asia. I won't do that for all of them, but I think Asia was an important one. Another noticeable feature is that Africa is set to more than double its percentage of global population across the period, going from just 9% in 1950 to 20% by 2050. Notice I skipped the 13% in the year 2000. I don't have time to, as I said before, I don't have time to talk about all the data points, okay? So I'm just picking and choosing. This is largely at the expense of Europe, in other words, in contrast to Europe, which will fall from 22% to only 7%. So almost the reverse for Europe. Now I'm going to couple North America and Latin America together. It makes sense to me to do that. North America's share of global population is expected to see a moderate decline from 7% in 1950 to only 4% by 2050. Again, I skipped the middle. We don't have time. It's already a very long answer. In contrast, Latin America's share will increase over the period, going from 6 to 9%. And then I'm going to finish with the smallest, which is what I usually do. Okay, Oceania, which will have the lowest population, accounts for approximately 1% in all 3 given years. Again, notice I'm using language that shows the data in relationship to the other data. So looking again at this paragraph, I put Africa in relation to Europe on purpose to show comparison and contrast. Again, I use the expression in contrast to show contrast. It's a very simple way of showing contrast is to start your sentence with in comparison or with in contrast. Notice I said Oceania will have the lowest. When I say lowest, that's a superlative. That's putting Oceania in relationship to all the other data. So again, show comparison and contrast, just like you do for line graphs, pie charts, bar charts, etc. That's about it. So again, tables, sometimes the problem is they're too simple and there's no main features. In this case, I think the hard part was there were lots of important and noticeable features. So in this case, to do a good one, I had to do I'm not sure what the word count is, but I would say it's significantly over 200. Sometimes it's a struggle to get to 150. Again, as I said, it depends on your particular task that you're given. So that's about it. Now, as you might have already seen that sometimes these tables can be matched with a pie chart. Pie charts could be matched with a bar chart. You get all sorts of combinations, but from this video series, if you just take the principle of what you're trying to do with the table, what you're trying to do with the pie chart, it doesn't really matter if you get a mix of table and pie chart. Just follow the principles of the video series and you should be fine, okay? Nothing really changes except you're doing it in a more compact way. For example, if I had a table and a pie chart, I'd usually just do a body paragraph about the table, a body paragraph about the pie chart. If there was a way to contrast the two or show relationship between the two, you do it. But yeah, just understanding the principles of each of these different kinds of tasks, it is basically enough, I think, to get you through. I hope you enjoyed this video series. If you have questions about it, of course, email me or message me. Usually on Facebook is the quickest way for me to answer. And I hope this video series was useful to you. Have a nice one, and all the best with your IELTS preparation.